Welcome back to the Fuel Your Freedom podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode number 12. Today, we are going to be talking about 4 questions that you can use to filter through the BS, right? There are quite literally thousands of different workouts, nutrition plans, diets, and health programs, services, products. The list is honestly endless, from shakes to pills to home workout equipment to coaching programs. How are we even supposed to know where to begin? And I say this truly and honestly. Sometimes I sit back and I put myself in my client's shoes. I would be lost, right? Heck, even in my own shoes, it can be confusing. And I've had 4.5 years of higher education, 10 formal certifications, access to and completion of at least 4 additional certifications, countless continuing education resources, not to mention research articles and other information that I consume through social media and the internet and all those things. So I say that to show I'm educated heavily on these topics. And even then, sometimes people come in and they'll ask a question and I'm like, I have never heard of that product, service, workout, etc. Right? There's still new crazy things out there. There's so much information. And honestly, sometimes it's just all too much. So that's kind of what we're talking about today. How can we weed through it all, right? So I was thinking about it. I put together 4 questions that can act as a filter before you try something new. So these kind of act as like getting smaller and smaller, narrowing down. So if it doesn't pass through one layer of the filter, we go on to the next question and the next question and the next question. And by the time we answer these 4 questions about the product or service or nutrition plan or diet, etc., we can have a better idea of if it will work for you or not, right? It's going to weed through the information as well as the people promoting that information. So you know prior to a potential monetary investment if it will be a good fit for you. Now, I do want to give a disclaimer before I dive into the questions. By no means would I say these questions are all-encompassing, right? There are still products, services, and programs that may pass through but might not be a good fit. Without me knowing you and your situation and being able to advise you individually, I can't not say for sure. But these questions will provide a baseline for if you should invest potentially in a product or service, or just give it a shot if it doesn't require an investment. So this is where we start. It's that starting point. It's that baseline filter that we can use. So let's dive into those questions. The first one on the list: does it sound too good to be true? Now, this is a huge one, which is why I kicked off the list with it. If you've ever heard the saying, if it's too good to be true, it probably is, I don't know that statement is any truer, but in the health and fitness space. Specifically, let's talk about the supplement industry here. As humans, we're wired to want things fast. Heck, we're wired to want them yesterday, if at all possible, right? It's the whole buzz behind like Amazon shipping, right? 1-day shipping, 2-day shipping. No one wants to wait a week for something they can order online if they can get it in 2 days. That's how they're so successful in that shipping model. But our entire society is set up in a way to give us that instant gratification, right? So it's not just shipping products. We want the instant hits of that gratification. We want the likes on social media, the instant responses via text, email, etc. Our entire society is set up that way. And the advertising and supplement industry is not an exception, right? They are part of the world that we live in, this instant gratification world. So they shouldn't be an exception. And as we dive in, there are quite literally powders and pills for everything and anything. Seriously, anything. Unfortunately, we often want the end results that these products promise so badly that we spend the money on the products, thinking they'll do the work they say in the advertisement, right? Only to discover that it does not work alone. The hard work, the discipline, the time are still all requirements of reaching that end goal. One example of this, and this is not the only example, but it is a good one, is fat burning supplements, right? Not all fat burners have the same ingredients, but I'm going to put them all in the same category just for the sake of this example, right? So some fat burners have actually been studied in formal research and shown that the subjects burn more fat in comparison to the placebo, right? That's true. It has shown that. But what the advertisements neglect to mention is that the people in the studies were also on very strict calorie controlled diets that they did not waver from, exercising to moderate to high intensity multiple times per week, which were structured workouts, getting adequate sleep, incorporating stress management techniques, right? There's all these other lifestyle factors, and all of those basic habits we talk about are there. And then they put the fat burner supplement on top of all of those, right? So it's not that the fat burner works alone, as they lead you to believe that it does. And as many people buy into a supplement, again, it doesn't have to be a fat burner, but many people buy into a supplement because the advertising sells it as this will work alone, when in fact it does not work alone. It works in conjunction or to supplement the rest of those habits that are in check there, right? Another good example, like protein, right? Protein powder is a super universal supplement. I personally use it. We have one at Unity that we have all of our members who want to purchase it. They can buy it from us, right? It's a great, great supplement. But if I were to consume exclusively protein from protein powder, I would argue that that's not the best decision, right? Protein powder in excess, when we can get protein from other whole food sources, perhaps isn't the best choice. But in a pinch, in, a time crunch, or to supplement my intake, it is an easy way to get in additional protein. So again, all those other lifestyle factors, such as eating adequate protein in my diet, are simply supplemented by the supplements, right? So it's not the magic pill that the companies advertise, right? The fat burner, let's go back to that example, is exactly what it is at the core, right? It's that supplement. It's going to push you further, but if you don't have the habits in place, it's simply only burning your money, right? Like, honestly, it's not necessary, right? And I do want to stress that. I know I use that as an example here. I know that's not a super common supplement, but it is one that's commonly advertised, right? They are absolutely not necessary. I'm going to say it again. Fat burners are not necessary. You do not need them, even if you have those basics nailed. They're simply a moneymaker for a lot of these companies. And again, if you are in a situation, perhaps you're prepping for, a bikini competition or a bodybuilding show, okay, maybe that might be something you need to look into, but that's going to be a very individual recommendation, not necessary for your general lifestyle change, right? So let's hop into services, right? Some services market towards having this brand new, secret, never before seen information as a play to get you to buy that service. But when you step back from the situation, remove the emotion, right? Because they're tapping into those emotional feelings. You want something new. You want that change that they're advertising. But if we step back, remove that emotion, we think about it, does it make sense that an influencer or social media personality has a never before researched information, right? I don't know about that. Or does it make more sense that they've perhaps misinterpreted research and existing information to fit a narrative they want to tell, right? So this is another super common thing. Like, people go on and read just the abstract or a small part of a study and misinterpret that or extrapolate or expand that data to include things that aren't necessarily what the research showed itself, right? Now, again, this is more with services. It's just taking that time to step back to say, is it too good to be true? Now, again, another caveat, and this episode will probably be filled with them. This is not obviously the first and probably not going to be the last, but this isn't to downplay people on social media. There are hundreds of reputable, smart people on social media, right? Like, I'm on social media. I get a lot of information from very knowledgeable, educated people on social media, but we have to kind of take inventory of who we are following on social media and who we are getting that information from, right? We need to be able to pull back, think logically for a moment instead of with those emotions, right? They want us to think emotionally. They want us to act emotionally, but think logically sometimes about these products or services, especially when you're asking if it's too good to be true, right? So if it is too good to be true, it's probably not the program for you because it likely is. Now, if it doesn't sound good to be true, this might be time to dive deeper in. So this comes into my second filter question, which is, does it sound realistic for you? Or will it impact your life in a negative way, right? Now, the last question was a big one, right? I think a lot of products and services that perhaps are too good to be true can be obviously filtered out right at the start. But if it does pass that, doesn't really sound too good to be true, but is it realistic for you, right? Because if something isn't realistic, if it doesn't fit your life as it exists right now, you are not going to be successful doing it, right? That's it. It cannot be simpler, right? You could follow a diet for an X amount of time and you might be very successful in losing weight during that time. But if the diet you're following doesn't fit your long-term life plan and you then go back and gain back all that weight that you lost and maybe even plus some, then that's not a successful diet, right? It didn't change your life long term. You simply changed your life for a short period of time before coming back to it, right? So I would argue that that's not a successful program if that's the end outcome, right? And you can have the most perfect program on paper, right? It can abide by all the scientific principles, utilize the most current research, have all the bells and whistles of it. But if you can't execute it with similar, not the same, but similar perfection, it's not a perfect program. On the other hand, you can have a great program. Perhaps it's not perfect, but it's great. It fits your schedule. It accounts for your activities outside the gym and is flexible enough to allow for recovery between workouts. And you can execute it nearly perfectly, right? You enjoy going and executing on your program. You might have a day off here and there, right? It doesn't have to be 100%. But if we can get above that 80% threshold of execution, that is the perfect program for you, right? And honestly, with so many programs out there, there are going to be ones that don't fit your lifestyle, goals, preferences, etc., right? It's going to happen. I remember when I was first starting to get into fitness, I would go on bodybuilding.com, was like a huge back in the day. It still is, but like it was even bigger. And it wasn't a membership site like it is now. There was a ton of free workouts. And there were so many programs that I tried that just didn't work. I was teaching multiple group exercise classes a week. I was working out hours and hours doing that. And then I was trying to do these huge, long bodybuilding style workouts that just weren't fitting in with my lifestyle. So those were not perfect, though a lot of people had success and they wouldn't be on the site if people were not successful with them, right? So that's just one example where personally I've followed programs that, again, a lot of people found success with and were set up by certified professionals and all this, that, and the other thing. But for me, they just didn't work. And that's okay. You don't have to fit into the mold that many of these programs want to put you into. You want to find one eventually that works with you and not against you, right? You want to find one that fits your lifestyle, that fits your goals, that fits everything that you want to do, instead of one where you have to change to fit into the program. But this isn't only with exercise. This happens in nutrition as well. If you know you want to enjoy craft beer regularly, following a diet that cuts out alcohol and carbohydrates 100% of the time likely isn't going to be the best option, right? If you know you love, say, avocados or mixed nuts or nut butters, following a lower fat diet is going to be very challenging to do, right? Because like I said before, we don't want to find a workout program or a nutrition plan for only that 2, 4, 6, 8, 9, 12, whatever, 24 weeks. It's not about those weeks, right? Those weeks are just a small snippet of our life. It's about a life change and a lifestyle design that you want to maintain and sustain for a long period of time. Because short term, you're not going to remember the short term things that you went through. You're going to remember the long term sustainable change and build your life the way that you want it, with fitness as a part of that. So if this program is realistic for you, if it passes this filter question, if it's realistic, if it's going to be a positive addition to your lifestyle, we move on to question number 3. And question number 3 is, will the program, product, or service meet you where you are at right now? Now, I think I've said most of these questions are the most important, but I might just say this one is also equally important. Heck, they're really all important to ask, which is why they made the list, right? But by now we know we want a program that will fit into our life, right? So it's not too good to be true. We believe in the program. We don't think it's too good to be true right off the bat, right? It's realistic for us. It's going to give us a positive impact. But we also need a program that will meet us where we are at right now. Okay? So when I talk about this, I mean, we likely all have a fitness goal. Regardless of what that goal is, we want change in some regard, right? We likely want change, while maintaining is a goal as well. But for this example, let's use change, right? We want to change our body composition, add weight to a lift, run a further distance, etc. But we want to improve, right? That's the idea here. And I would argue that maintenance is also improvement, even though it isn't marked by huge changes. You're still going to be adding weight. You're still going to be gaining strength most likely during that time. So first, we have to acknowledge where we are at in the current moment. So I'm going to refer back to another quote here. If you've heard like the quote or the idea, and I couldn't find anyone that actually said it, and I thought it was a quote, but I couldn't really find who said this, but it's kind of that idea of like, act as the person you want to become, right? Like, what would your future self do right now? And this is true to an extent, right? We want to incorporate some of those habits that our future self would do, right? For example, if our future self wakes up and meditation or reading in the morning is something you want to incorporate, start incorporating that now, right? I like that idea. But at the same time, if the person you want to become is too far removed from the person that you are right now, we have to start smaller, right? So if the person you want to become wakes up in the morning, reads for 30 minutes, then goes to the gym, then comes home, takes a shower all before 6 a.m. And right now you're sleeping until 8 a.m. regularly, right? Like, that's an out of the box example because I don't know that any of us do that. But even if you do, and that's your goal, that's a huge change to make all those changes. You're going to have to wake up significantly early where you are right now and do a significant amount of things in that time as well. So it's kind of like that idea when we try for that overnight overhaul of our life, we are bound to fail. 100% we're bound to fail. We're going to revert back to our old habits. That's why they're habits. They're ingrained in us. It takes time to break them. But on the other hand, when we can drip in new habits and small changes over a period of time, we then meet ourselves where we are right in this minute, and we're better able to maintain those new behaviors for a long period of time. So to go back to my example, if you're waking up at 8 and you want to do all those things, I don't even remember what I listed, to be honest with you, but if you want to list all of those things, or you want to do all of those things before 6 a.m. and you're sleeping till 8, perhaps your first change is, okay, I'm going to start progressively just waking up earlier, right? Getting my body just used to being awake earlier before I try and meditate, read, have coffee, go get a workout in, shower, etc., and then get on with the rest of my day, right? So instead of just doing it all at one time, I'm going to take time to drip in those habits. Start with waking up earlier. Start with reading when you wake up versus reading at 5:30 before you go to the gym, take a shower, etc., etc., right? So when you're choosing a workout program or diet, asking if it will meet you where you're currently at is extremely important, because the program might have promises of where you want to go or where you want to be in the future. And that's awesome. All programs, I think, should be back engineered to guarantee you to reach your goal. But what about right now, right? What can you integrate right now? Can you integrate it into your life in small pieces and make that sustainable change instead of forcing you into a situation where it requires an overnight overhaul and you're bound to fail in the future as you go on. So if you answer yes, if you can say that yes, you can incorporate this program into your lifestyle and it meets you where you're at right now, we have one final question to ask, final filter to pass before we can decide if we want to invest or try out this program. Okay, so this last and final question, and it's kind of a two-parter here. Do you want to work with the people who are promoting it? And do they seem like people you would connect with? And would you guide them to would you trust them to guide you on your journey? Okay, so this one's about the people behind the program. So a lot of programs are very good, don't get me wrong. They might have passed all of these questions, but at the same time, you don't connect with the coach or the person behind the program, and that is okay, right? And for example, I'm going to use an example from Unity, right? When we work with people, every single person either hops on a call if they're a virtual member or comes in and meets with us in person. Now, obviously we want that person to learn about Unity, about what we do and what we offer, about the team, etc. But at the same time, it allows us to learn about them, right? We want to make sure both sides have that that connection, that fit. Because if it doesn't fit, then likely neither side will be successful, right? Like we won't feel good about it. They won't feel good about it. And it's just not a good partnership. When I was an individual personal trainer working at a gym, there were clients who I didn't necessarily have a connection with, that I didn't think I would be a good fit to work with, but I knew my coworker worked with similar types of people and he would really enjoy them, right? Or even coming down to it, I had clients who wanted to work with a male trainer and I was like, awesome. Like I'm quite obviously not a male. Absolutely, here, I will refer you to my coworker, right? So it needs to be mutually beneficial. You need to connect with the person behind the program. And this is especially important when you're joining a gym or investing in like a coaching relationship, right? You want to make sure that that relationship is going to be a beneficial one for both sides of the party. We don't want to get in a situation where you're dreading having to talk to someone or you just don't connect with them, right? Sometimes it's just not there because through fitness, you're going to create a relationship with this person beyond fitness, right? Beyond fitness. And you want this person to be someone who you want to guide you along your journey. And again, that trust, takes time, but oftentimes we do have an initial gut instinct that most people have a pretty good gut instinct of, yes, this is going to be a good fit for me, or no, it's not. And that's super important to kind of look at the people behind the program to see if you would be a good fit, if you mesh with them as a person, especially, like I said, if you're joining a gym or something in person or something where there will be connection, right? Versus like just buying a pre-made program online, right? That might not be as important. But if it is something in person, especially, or high contact touch points, like you're going to be conversing with this person, hopping on Zoom calls, phone calls, seeing this person, coaching, etc. You're going to want that person to be someone that you can connect with. Okay. And again, like I said, it's because at the end of the day, fitness is so much more than fitness, right? Lifting weights is so much more about lifting weights. Those things are just trivial. It's about the workouts and the lifestyle changes that can bring to your life, right? Outside of the gym. Right? So it's about the adventures or whatever life goals that you have that you want to accomplish. Yeah, you're going to tackle those in the gym, but they play into what you're doing. So if you answered yes, the people are the ones you want to spend time with and work with and potentially invest in, then of course, obviously our last filter, make sure the program fits your goals. There'll be programs that, are designed to gain mass, but if you want to lose weight, then potentially a mass gaining program is not going to be the one for you, right? Like that, I think that's a prerequisite, but I'm going to restate it here anyway. But again, this isn't an all-inclusive questioning, but when we pass through these filters, we can better filter through the thousands of programs that are out there. I can't stress it enough. There's just so many of them. So these 4 questions provide that framework to allow us to filter through all of the programs, products, services offered so often in the health and fitness space. This brings me to our empowered action for this week. So obviously these questions are very extreme and sometimes extremely niche questions, right? If you're not in the market for a health and fitness change, you might not need them right now. But if that's you, bookmark this article or podcast, write these questions down so you can reference them later. Maybe you have a friend or family member that is looking for something different. Share these questions with them, right? Allow them the opportunity to kind of filter through because, again, there's so much information. It's tough to know what to do. If you are looking through, your goal or your action for this week is to filter your programs. What are your options? What are you looking at? Filter them through each of these questions. Go through in order and see if the program may be a good fit. Once you filter through, dive deeper. Confirm that it's something you want to do before investing instead of making that emotional decision, right? It's so easy to do, but when we step back, we think logically, we go through these 4 questions as well as some additional questions, we can better make sure that the program is going to be one that we'll enjoy and will work for us in our health and fitness journey, regardless of what our goal is. So that is all I have for you guys this week. Thank you so much for tuning in. I think this was a little bit longer episode than usual. So I want to thank you guys for taking the time to spend time with me and listen this week. As always, if you enjoyed this episode and you're listening on Apple Podcasts, go ahead and leave a rating and review. It very much helps the show grow. Or you can always share it with someone else, again, especially if you know someone looking at a health and fitness program or looking to make a change in their journey. Helps the show grow, but more importantly, helps them make an educated decision on what will work for them instead of getting caught in a trap of something that won't. So, thank you so much for tuning in this week, and I will catch you guys in next week's episode. Bye, everybody.